here. That's really great. So
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt with the recording.
no worries.
Thank you. It was great.
No problem.
It's nice to see alumni working together. So Sharon, if you could, you mentioned you were with JBG. So how would you say you've leveraged some of the skills that you acquired as principal there into your company now?
So, and I should probably back up since they talked about GW. So I have my MBA from GW, graduated a long time ago with that, and I'm currently the chair of the CREN board. So I'm pretty involved in real estate at GW. As far as JBG, so they were my longtime client when I went there. I'd been a broker, they've been my client probably for 25 years, and I went there as a partner to run the leasing and management. And, you know, what I found out when I was there is that you always learn something new, no matter where you go, no matter what you're doing. So I became part of the largest development firm in DC and had an opportunity to work on every development that they did and was responsible overall for the leasing and management of all the property. So it was an opportunity for me to really get to know the nuts and bolts of buildings far better than I had known before. When you're a broker, you're working on the deal side. When you're the development side, you're working for how does the building really work? How does, what's the best way to deliver an office building? How do you increase the value of the asset? So all of those things gave me a different perspective in a way on what I did. And so when I left to start my own firm with my partner, I had all that knowledge and all that basis. And so today we really help people from start to finish. To give you an example of the kind of deals we've done, we did a deal that was 100,000 square foot build-to-suit. We started with helping them find the site, find the land. We helped them hire the whole team of people on that development, architect, project management, contractor, the whole 9 yards. And I had a lot of that experience from being at JBG. And then we did the leasing for them. So, really it was an opportunity to have a very long-term relationship with a client and utilize all the skills that we had. So that was the kind of experience that I got at JBG. And I know GW has sent a lot of people to JBG to work. And they're kind of an evolving firm at this point, but it's a great place to get a lot of exposure to a lot of different things on the development side.
Great, thank you. And while we're talking about your experience in the DC market, could you talk a bit about the office market in DC and how you foresee it changing? I'm sure that that's your favorite question.
It's a question I get asked every day. It's okay. It's just one of those things.
I'm scared to ask.
It's kind of like, so right before the pandemic, we did the largest deal in DC. We did the Comonix lease at the Yards. It's 300,000 square foot build-to-suit. And then, suddenly, a couple months, we did that in December of 19 is when that deal was signed. By March of 2020, we were shut down, right? I mean, everybody was home. And, when I look at it, we, as a real estate firm, we were very busy during 2020 and 2021. We were able to pivot. We did a lot of investment sales. We helped a lot of our clients get through that. But the overall market, has changed a lot and probably forever. Okay. I don't think the office market goes away. I just think it's evolved into something different than what it was. The kinds of office space that people want is different than what it was 2 or 3 years ago. It's much more like when you walk into an office today, it's much more like a living room. It's much more a place that kind of welcomes you in and allows you to go and drop in on a space and work there instead of have maybe your own space, a lot of conference space, a lot of amenities in buildings. It's kind of the war of amenities at this point between every developer, almost everybody that's building rooftop deck. Outside spaces have become critically important. People want to be able to open up out of their space. Wellness, all these designations that you can get for a building to have well kinds of features, so fit well buildings, all of these things. You'll see them when you walk in and out of office buildings today, because everybody's trying to say, we have a healthy building. We have considered everything, a lot of touchless kinds of equipment. You walk in, you may not have to touch the elevator. You may not have to touch, a doorknob. Heating and air conditioning systems have changed, a lot more turnover in air, a lot cleaner. So there's all of those kinds of things. And so tenants are considering much different things than they did before. Before it was how many people can we fit into the space and how much, how packed in can we make it? Today, it's much more what really works for us. And the buildings have a lot more amenities. So in your office space, you may not need conference space because they may have a conference center that you can use. So you may have a small conference space in your office and then be able to use the building's conference center, things like that. So it's, it's really evolved very quickly. I think that forever hybrid work will stay. People will be coming and going. It's really easy to work from home. Everybody found that out. On the other hand, you really need to be together to be able to collaborate on different things and to be able to work on projects together and, come up with ideas and, all the kinds of things that people do when they're together. So the office has become the kind of place to bring people back together. With that said, the office market's pretty tough these days. There's still not a lot of demand. We're probably still at least a year away from bringing back full, whatever we're going to call full demand. It may not be ever what it was, but we're surviving. I'll say that. And the office market is not gone forever. And
It'll never be gone.
People still need office space. They just need less of it. So that's sort of the status of the market right now.
Great, thank you. And that's obviously a very common trend of everyone's now sick of being home and ready to meet another human.
Right.
So I'm hopeful I'll work in an office one day.
You will work in an office one day for sure.
It's funny, like every job, it will say office, and then you read in the fine print, actually it'll be virtual and remote. So.
Well, it's funny because it sort of depends on where you are in your career, if people like being virtual or they don't like being virtual. I think when you're young and just starting out, you really need to be in an office and you need to have people around you that can help you grow into your job and learn. And then you get to a point where maybe it's okay to be virtual for a while. And then you have kids and you don't want to be virtual because they drive you crazy. They're all in the background of every Zoom call. and then you get past that. So I think there's just going to be a mix, and it's going to continue to be a mix. And that's okay. I think it's going to evolve into that. As long as we can get past COVID right now, I think office will be, begin to come back pretty well.
There's hope.
One can only hope. I'm over it. So.
Thank you, Sharon. Brandon, so you have quite a bit of experience in retail, as I'm sure everybody has looked at your LinkedIn page as instructed. So could you kind of talk a bit about why you chose to start a company during peak pandemic times? I found that incredibly interesting.
Sure. I think at first I thought it was a good idea. Then I thought I was mentally insane after doing it, but it actually turned out to be the right decision. So, hey Max, I think you got to mute your line because Max and I are in the same. There we go.
Sorry.
All good. So, yeah, I mean, look, retail, even pre-COVID, I'd say since the past 10 years or so, was going through major shifts because of the internet. Right. And Amazon and other e-commerce companies were coming into play, and, delivery online, shopping with the direct to consumer brands. This was all something that was happening way before COVID was anyone even heard or thought or dreamed to think or hear about COVID. And frankly, what COVID did, in some ways, I think we'll look back at it as somewhat of a, I don't want to say a good thing, but definitely something that really knocked out all the teetering retail brands that should have been gone a long time ago. And if they were unable to adapt and get hip with the times, COVID certainly was the nail in the coffin for them. And similarly, the emergence of people being at home and shopping and ordering things online really skyrocketed. And because of that, I said to myself, you know what, a lot of my personal experience as a broker at Cushman, even pre-COVID, was really sort of on the tenant side, was representing new age brands and new age companies that were in the venture capital community, backed by mostly, new founders that came from the Amazons and the Facebooks and the Googles of the world, started their new companies, and we were helping them on their real estate procurement searches in New York and Miami and Chicago, in, really sort of all over the country, but also where the bread and butter is here in New York City. So because of that, when COVID hit, it was something I was teetering with pre-COVID, but when COVID hit, I looked at it as a huge opportunity to really take advantage of what I believed at the time would be a rough period to start, but after that would be frankly, a renaissance of retail, which is where the name Mona, like I said earlier, came into play. So now here we are 16, 17 months after launch. And I can tell you, and Max can attest to it, that, the team, everyone here is working on a whole number of deals, New York City in particular, and cities around the country, including DC, where we're working on a pretty big transaction representing a tenant. Boston, Miami, Chicago, LA, these major gateway cities definitely have gone through transformations and are somewhat challenged given where the world is. But if anything, the thesis that we had when we started this company is really starting to pay off in a lot of different sectors of retail. And most notably right now, I think that sort of the most interesting overarching theme is that the luxury players, whether it's the Kerings, the Richemonts, the LVMHs of the world, those types of retailers are expanding like wildfire. And I think it has to do with sort of asset values and, how wealthy people continue, the stock market, Bitcoin, and all these different real estate asset prices are through the roof. And therefore, the luxury retailers are looking to take advantage of that. So, again, retail seems to be strong. I hope these aren't famous last words if Russia invades Ukraine in the next couple of days and things get, gas prices go through the roof and we're all, in a different place. But as of now, up until this point, we're really seeing, retail come back in certain pockets of New York City and other cities very, very strong. So that's the story why I started it. And the thesis seems to be paying off.
It does seem to be paying off. So it's nice to know that we can start things in a pandemic.
Yeah, true.
So Max, on the topic of Mona, so you actually had a couple development internships throughout college. So what led you to pivot into retail and work with Brandon?
Yeah, so both my internships were very valuable. I learned different skills from each of them. Again, I feel that internships are great because they're a learning process and you kind of see what you like and don't like. My first internship was with a small development company and I worked directly on small boutique buildings, working with like the construction managers and the construction schedules. And I thought that was interesting, but I had no construction background, no engineering background. It all sounded like cool to me, like real estate development, but it wasn't something I was passionate about. So then the summer after, I actually got an internship from someone from GW, Steve Fiegerman, who is the head of Brown Harris Stevens development marketing. So I worked for him my sophomore summer. And there I did market research on new developments, gathering prices for all the new condo sales and all the availabilities. And that was interesting too, but residential real estate didn't really excite me as I thought it would. So I always had a passion for retail and shopping and the clothings and brands. And I'm born and raised in New York, so I know the landscape of it very well from all the different neighborhoods, Soho, Fifth Avenue. And I felt like I could use my skill set to help tenants coming into New York who have no idea what New York is like, or existing tenants saying, hey, where should we expand? So I always knew of Brandon, but I never actually got a chance to actually reach out. And I actually heard a podcast and he was on it. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to reach out to Brandon just to pick his brain about retail, about New York. And little did I know, after I spoke to him, but 6 months later, he started Mona. And I reached out to him. And then in last April, he offered me a job. So I was number 4 in the company then. And so far, yeah, I feel like the rest is history. I'm learning a lot. Brandon's a great mentor and I'm learning stuff about New York every day, especially with the retail landscape as it evolves and as it changed, obviously due to COVID. And I feel like I made the right pivot to retail because I feel like I can use my talents to help tenants rather than sell like a nice luxury apartment to somebody. So
definitely. Well, it's great. And it's good to know that the GW Alumni Network is paying off for you.
Yes, it has.
So everyone take note, take Rob's constant advice, reach out. So yes, Max is a walking example of what works. So Sharon, I had a quick question about Meany Oliver. So from my understanding, you offer a wide range of services from landlord and tenants to investment services. So kind of which facets of the company have been impacted most during COVID, and how have you had to evolve the company?
Okay, so there's no question that office leasing has been impacted the most. I mean, people went home and they weren't even sure that they needed a lease or that they were ever going to come back to a lease. And some firms have not come back, and other ones have. But that's definitely, I think, across the board, every brokerage firm, every developer would tell you that that's the number one thing that just kind of went away. I mean, retail had its issues for sure, but office just disappeared. So that really, office leasing, became something that we still did, and we still helped our clients through and helped negotiate everything that they needed to deal with during COVID. A lot of it was downsizing. A lot of it was doing a short-term deal to get them through, to try to figure out, nobody had any idea what the end of COVID was going to look like, what their needs were going to be. There was so much uncertainty. So that took the big hit in pretty much all of real estate. We were able to pivot because we have experience in a lot of different areas. And so we did more investment sales than I've done maybe in my whole career over the last 2 years. And what happened was values still held up. And so there were people that were trying to take advantage of a market and sell into a market where they still felt like they had the values, even though COVID was going on in the background. So we've done a lot of sales. A lot of that has been conversions. So an office building converted to an apartment building, an office building converted to a condominium, residential condo building. We just closed on a building last Friday that's an office building converted into a school. Okay, so what we've been involved in is all these different ideas that people have now gotten of what we're going to do with all the excess office space and where that's going to go. And as all of you probably know, the residential market is hot as can be. So the obvious conversion is if you can turn an office building into anything residential, the value's there. DC just implemented concessions for developers and things that would incent them to convert. So to try to make it easier, because nobody wants vacant office buildings around. So that's become a pretty big part of our business, to help people figure out what to do with their existing office space and to get to actually accomplish a sale to the market to get that done. We actually have one client who actually decided to sell all of their office product. They had 6 office buildings and a much larger presence in the residential world. And they just said, we just want out of office, sell it all. So that's what we did. We systematically went through and sold all their office product. Wow. So that's been keeping us pretty busy on that side. And office leasing will come back, but today it's not as big a part of what we do right now. So I think, I think whoever said pivot, it's been kind of the word of the last 3 years. How can you pivot? What can you figure out how to do something different and keep going and, to keep your business in line? So
definitely. Well, great. Thank you. So Max and Brandon, I have a question for both or one of you. How do you kind of foresee the retail industry changing, especially once we fully get out of the COVID world, which hopefully will be soon?
Max, you want to go first or do you want me to?
You can go first.
So I think what we've seen, look, there's a lot of changes, but from my perspective, one of the biggest and sort of most, and I don't know how this is in other cities, other than obviously I'm in New York and a few other cities that I've seen it happen in, but the days of, going online, placing your grocery orders as an example on a Tuesday and hoping they show up on Thursday or Friday are over. And the days of going on, whatever website.com, placing your order on a Monday and hoping that the order gets to you by 3 or 4 business days will shortly be over. Reason being is that one of the interesting sort of phenomenons that we've seen is that as more and more websites utilize fulfillment strategies and how to get product from a warehouse somewhere into the consumer's hands, the industrial market around major geographies such as New York, such as DC, such as Miami, such as Chicago, so on and so forth, has become so expensive. Similarly, retail pricing has been sort of going the opposite direction. You've seen players here in New York, such as Joker, 1520, who actually I think was bought by Joker, but Getter, GoPuff, specifically in food, so on and so forth, utilizing retail space. And because of sort of where the world has been, activating, being able to afford that retail space on a price per square foot basis that's frankly equal to the cost that the cost that they would be paying to take a warehouse, to take a big, industrial fulfillment center, gas up a truck, put a driver in the truck, drive it through tolls into Manhattan or into whatever other city. So I think what you'll wind up seeing as a result of the pandemic really accelerating it, like I was saying before, are delivery of product and goods from stores or other, non-consumer interfacing facilities that are in ground floor retail space, arriving at the end consumer's house or apartment or office, if people ever go back to the office or wherever they're going, in a much, much, much more sort of efficient and quicker time frame. And I think that as time goes on over the next months and years ahead, coming out of the pandemic, will in my opinion, will be a way more, will be a very sort of prominent way that people shop.
Great, thank you. Max, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with Brandon. These logistic tenants are popping up left and right, and ghost kitchens, as we know, are becoming also another big trend. Having a commissary kitchen and then exporting all your food to the certain locations like Sweetgreen, just to expedite the whole process of going in and ordering food, or even going online and ordering food. So that, I think, is becoming a big trend also. And also, as we've seen pop-ups with certain brands, those are also becoming more and more popular. I mean, just by working at Mona the past few months, we've been working with brands looking to do fall pop-ups or holiday pop-ups or summer pop-ups, because they can't afford a whole store for, let's say, 5 to 10 year lease, but they can do pop-up for 3 or 4 months, build that kind of hype around their brand, and then go back to their online presence. So I think those are also going to become more popular in New York City and a lot of other cities too, like LA and Boston.
Totally.
Thank you. Well, glad to know there's such an abundant world of retail these days. So thank you for that. And for everybody, so you're all in different stages of your alumni careers post GW. So kind of what takeaways have you brought with you in your careers from GW?
Well, I guess I can go first. I mean, I'm now here working with Brandon, who's a GW alumni. I interned for a GW alumni, so definitely utilizing my GW network. Obviously, Rob has worked very hard to create this network, and CREA and CREN and RIFA. So I encourage everybody to join all the clubs, or one of the clubs. Just network internally at GW, network with people you see on LinkedIn, on TV shows. Like, don't be afraid to reach out to people, especially if interested in brokerage, because as Brandon says to me every day, like, things aren't going to get done unless you work to get them done. So if I don't make the call to the tenant or to the landlord, then things aren't going to happen. So don't be afraid to put your best foot forward, reach out to people, and just don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Great, thank you. Brendan or Sharon?
Sharon, go ahead. Or I can go, whatever.
No, that's fine. So, I think that you're right, that our business is built on networking. Like, you start somewhere right out of school and you build a network that can last your whole career. And so many of the people that I did my MBA with at GW, or went to undergrad with, I still know. One of them's on the crew board with me. So, we graduated in '82 with an MBA, and we still know each other. So it's kind of interesting to see that, that you keep those contacts would be the number one thing. As you develop your network, try to maintain your contacts so that you continue to have those people that you can reach out to for any number of reasons. I mean, if I have a question on a tenant that's moving from New York, I have a New York connection probably through GW to talk to somebody and find out what the answer is. So those people that you know now are going to be important throughout your whole career. And GW has a platform that works really well because it has a huge alumni presence in the real estate industry. Rob's done a great job of keeping those people connected and building that. And CREA is here for everybody to draw on as a resource. So I think that GW has some of the most resources of any place to be able to help everybody in the real estate career as it changes.
Definitely. Great. Thank you. And Brandon, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sharon and Max covered it, but the truth is, I mean, this business, depending what you want to do in the business, but specifically to brokerage, is completely 100% a relationship. Obviously, you have to know what you're doing and have to have a brain on your head, which obviously you do if you went to GW. But in addition to that, it's a relationship business. So networking, getting involved with with Rob and his group, and Rob's has done, to everyone's point that said it earlier, has done an incredible job. Really, I think, sort of cultivating and putting together a really good group of professionals, whether it's in DC or in New York or in other cities. And, again, one of the things that, speaking like, what Sharon was saying, one of the things that I really look back at my time at GW and reflect on even to today are the relationships and the friendships that I made there, and how I was able to carry them forward into my career in New York City as a real estate professional. So to anyone listening, just network, meet everybody, and utilize Rob and his his incredible group. And that's really it. That's my advice.
Great. Thank you, guys. And lastly, before I open it up to questions, I just want to see what advice you guys have to give people in the audience or any students at all.
Take advantage of every opportunity you have to learn. Go to do the internships, get to know people. Like Max said, don't be afraid to reach out to people if you just want to know about an industry or a business. Most people are willing to talk about what they do and what it means for you. So, my answer is always just, reach out and, do your research about the firm that you're talking to somebody at, but, don't be afraid to ask, for it. And I think consider every aspect of real estate. Like if you want to be a broker, great. If you want to be in development, great. Property management, there are so many different things you can do in real estate. Don't pigeonhole yourself, because you may find that you're a broker for a while, and then you work for a developer, and then you do something else. And so, people change as their careers evolve. And, I just think you have to realize that. So don't think a job's forever. No job's a forever job. So just, continue your path and, be open-minded about everything.
Definitely. Great. Thank you. And Brandon or Max, any advice?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Sharon, like keep an open mind. I mean, I had 2 internships that were completely different, and now I'm doing retail real estate brokerage, which is also different. So those experiences kind of led me to where I am now. So don't be afraid to do something and say, hey, I don't like this, and try something else.
Definitely. And Brandon, last words for anyone?
Yeah, I mean, echoing on both what Sharon and Max said, I would say, in addition to those things, which is very important, I would advise anyone in here to try your best to expand what you're reading, what you're watching, as far as news and reading business publications, and really trying to get a more of a worldly perspective. And it's interesting how what goes on in the world really affects all of us in, something like I made a joke earlier, even though it's not that funny, about the Russian-Ukrainian conflict that's brewing and how that's going to affect retail real estate in New York. You would think what is the correlation? There's a big correlation. Things like that, getting smart at it and understanding it will help you help somebody sort of, utilize their creative juices to kind of, especially in an entrepreneurial field like brokerage, get around and understand how to take advantage or, sort of pivot given world events like COVID or whatever else may happen. So that would be my advice. And in addition to networking and just meeting everyone you possibly can.
Definitely.
So with that ever-changing environment, it's never boring in real estate. So just remember, it's always challenging and always fun.
Not always, but
never a dull
mostly.
moment.
Most days. I mean, there are trying times, but most days. I mean, it's been, right. It's a great career.
Yes.
I would agree from the snippets I've had. Well, thank you guys so much for all of the advice and answering any questions that I had for you. And with that, I'll open it up to the room for questions. So people can kind of just jump in. Don't feel like you need to raise a hand or anything. But I do see Rohan has a hand up. So
yeah, my bad. I guess this is more for Brandon and Max, but what are some of the challenges that you saw, opening a business, right in the height of COVID? Because you said 16 months ago was when you started, right? Yes,
16 months ago, September of 2020. Yep.
Yeah. So like what were like some of the hardest challenges with that, especially given the real estate market in New York at that time?
I mean, the challenges at that point were, I mean, it was, I mean, like I was telling the team today, you know, our office is actually in a retail space, and we're located on the corner of 61st Street and Park Avenue, which is a, you know, a normal corner. It's not a major cross street, but it's a nice corner, and there's good traffic. And today, you know, the weather was nice today. It was 60 degrees and sunny and beautiful. And if I stood in our office and I was looking outside, and the foot traffic was like, I like forgot that's what New York used to look like. I mean, we would come to the office and it was literally empty. There was nothing going on. There was no one there. On top of, you know, the fact that retail, similar to office, unfortunately still, but at the time, same, you know, no one was shopping. There was no deals getting done. It was a very, very mentally challenging time. But, you know, I think one of the things I learned was that if you stay optimistic, if you put your best foot forward, you can't, you know, you're not a magician. You can't change the way things happen or don't happen. But typically, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And that's what we're starting to see as the world starts to come back. We put in a tremendous amount of work. Max and the rest of the team and myself, we've been working pretty much this whole time. We've had little intermittent sort of work from home because of different variants and things like that we've had to do. But now we're all back in the office, and, you know, it's been a very interesting time to learn about a lot, including how to make ourselves better brokers. And hopefully, I can't think of anything else short of, you know, like a nuclear war that would be worse than what we just went through. And hopefully that never happens. But going through what we just went through was a very eye-opening experience for myself, and presumably for Max and the rest of the team also.
Anyone else? Questions?
Question for Sharon. You talked a lot about amenities, especially on the wellness side, and those are very tangible assets that you can go into a building or see. I was hoping you could maybe enlighten on sustainability, which is sometimes a little bit less tangible, especially with, you know, upfront costs being on the developer side, but maybe savings or things of that being on the tenant or user side.
So it's interesting. 10 years ago, tenants wouldn't pay more to be in a building that was a sustainable building. And so people weren't as willing to put the effort in to make that happen. Today, we meet with people that want net zero carbon buildings, things like that. We have a building downtown that we do that actually was going to draw heat away from the sewage treatment plant and convert that into power for a new office building. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of sustainability kinds of issues being considered in new office buildings, okay? And many of them required to some extent. So I think sustainability has become a lot more important. You have, you know, geothermal HVAC systems where we never had those before. They were, you know, not something that was thought about. We represent Alexandria City Public Schools, and they actually are considering geothermal for school buildings. And so you see a significant shift in it today. And so not only are amenities appointment, but also sustainability and health are really important in all buildings today. I think a lot of the cost has come down in it too. So that makes a difference. It's not as expensive to build it's the same amount of money almost to build it as to build a building that isn't sustainable.
Great, thank you. Oliver the gnome, I see hands up, and also Rob.
I have two questions. My first one is for Brandon. I was in Meatpacking and I saw the banner, the Mona Lisa. I just want to know what the inspiration was behind that. I think it's very eye-catching. And then on a more serious note, for all the panelists, you know, there's, I guess, a question of of being an analyst for 2 or 3 years out of school or going directly in a brokerage. Do you have opinions on that as to what the best route is?
Sure. So I'll give you my answer, obviously, for the first question, which was the reason we named it Mona is for a number of reasons, and they all kind of correlated and kind of hit. It seems like the perfect storm of a name. Mona stands for making of a new age, Renaissance period, the Mona Lisa, retail's going through a renaissance. It all kind of hit. And then on top of that, we figured one of our theses is sort of with regard to leasing signage. The traditional companies using leasing signage, it's just not really eye-catching and doesn't really speak to today's times, the way people communicate. So we figure the Mona Lisa obviously is something that's so recognizable and that people would interact with it, as opposed to just calling a number for space for rent. So that's how it came about, and we were right. It's definitely worked. People keep reaching out to Mona, and we've had a lot of it's a text message engagement thing that we do, which has been great. So that was the reason behind it. And as far as the second question, my advice, there's no right path. There's no wrong path. What I did and what Max is doing now as well is I graduated college and I went straight to brokerage. And I can tell you the only piece of advice that I would give you if you do choose, plan on being a brokerage professional, is that it takes time in order to transact, to learn what you're doing, B, the sales cycle is long. So it takes time to close deals. And, because of that, it takes time to make money. So it's not like a residential, rentals job where you go in and, you sign your lease and it takes a week to get the thing done. It takes somewhere it's 12, 18, 24 months to get a deal done. And then the payment schedule is not always right away. So because of that, if you start early enough, you have an ample amount of time to build your career, maybe do something else on the side to make a couple bucks so you can support your brokerage career. And then, 3, 5, 7, 9, 12, 15 years down the road, you'll thank yourself that you did that. However, other people don't have that path always. There's ways, clearly you can go to graduate school, you can work at a big landlord, you can work for, a million different things, becoming an analyst and sort of learning that way. I don't think there's really any right answer or wrong answer. I can just tell you what I did that worked for me, and that it seems like Max is on that path now as well. So hopefully that helps, answer the question you had.
Definitely. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Oliver. Noam, I think you were next.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, this is kind of a question for all the panelists, but just because everything constantly in the real estate industry is changing day by day, what would you guys suggest is a good way to, stay on top of the latest news and the latest trends and the latest topics, just to stay informed about the industry as a whole?
Sign up for the publications and go to events. I think Brandon was talking about, being able to read everything, figure out the real, like in Washington where I am, you want the Business Journal and BizNow, which you can sign up for free for, keeps every person in real estate reads it every day. That's where you're going to find out. If you're not actually in the industry, you're going to find out what's going on. But get connected, get connected to those publications, get connected to, the industry kinds of groups. Here in Washington, we have CREBA, which stands for Commercial Real Estate Brokers Association. So you have that opportunity. ULI, you can go online for a lot of these places and sign up. You don't have to necessarily belong. You might be able to get the information. For sure you can for BizNow, and you just stay on top of it that way. Also, talking to people. Just reach out. If you want to learn more about the industry, and you find somebody that's in the part of the industry that you're interested in, and they'll talk to you. A developer will talk to you about development trends. A broker will talk to you about what's going on in brokerage. Don't be shy. You can't be shy and be in real estate. So, it's reach out.
I also want to add on, a lot of the publications have student discounts, so get in on them now.
Yeah, almost all of them do. So it's pretty easy to get the publications and stay on top of what's going on. If you look at the Business Journal, New York has this too. They have a real estate section in it. So every week they're right on top of what's going on in real estate.
Great, thank you. Rob, I see a hand.
It took me a while to figure out how to raise my hand. I've run so many Zoom calls, but I've never been a participant like this. So my question is for Max. I think this would be helpful for students. Walk us through sort of what your day is like. Just sort of, okay, you haven't been working for quite a year yet. So I want students to have a sense of what it means to be a broker who's just starting out. So what can they expect if they're in your shoes, a year or two from now, or 6 months from now?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, with Mona, because we're such a small company, I have a lot of responsibility that somebody, let's say at JLL or Cushman & Wakefield, who are starting from the very bottom, doesn't have. So I can't speak to what they do, but for me working at a small firm, I was thrown right into the fire. So basically all the tenants and landlords that Brandon and the rest of the Mona team was working on, then they brought me in on the deals. So I became a direct participant on those deals. So we have two sides of the business: landlord representation and tenant representation. So basically landlords say, hey, I have a building, I have a vacant retail space, help me find a tenant. Then on the tenant side, you're saying, hey, I'm a restaurant, I'm a clothing store, help me find a retail space for me to park my business. So basically there's two different jobs that I'm doing every day. So I'm juggling one to the other, making sure I'm staying on top of canvassing. So in brokerage, we say canvassing, whereas we reach out to tenants and say, hey, we have this space, would you be interested here? So basically we send an activity report to the landlords, staying on top of our canvassing and marketing efforts, so they know that, yeah, Max is working on it and he's not forgetting about my space. So being in contact with landlords is very important. And then on the tenant side, I think I'm working with 6 or 7 tenants. So I'm constantly juggling between all of them, saying, hey, should I be on the Lower East Side? Should I be in Soho? Should I be in meatpacking? And then once they tell me or advise them where to go, then I have to put together what's called a survey book. So the survey books are basically just a list of sites that are available on the market, and it has what the asking price is, what the size of the frontage is, the floor plans. Basically, it's just almost like a brochure, me giving it to the client saying, hey, look over this survey book, tell me what you like, what you don't like. What you like, we can go tour. And if you like it when we tour, then we'll submit an LOI. So an LOI is a letter of intent. It's not binding. It's just saying, hey, we have an interest. We may lease this space. So here's our initial offer. And from the LOI phase, you go back and forth saying, I want the price here to be higher. I want this to be lower. I want the landlord to do construction for me. So it's constantly going back and forth in negotiation. That's why Brandon says these deals could take 6, 12 to 18 months, because you're constantly going back and forth. So my job is staying on top of all the back and forth, gathering all of the documents in an organized way, so I know which tenant I'm working with. And basically, that's my day, going back and forth from tenant to landlord side, keeping in touch with everybody and just staying on top of all of the offers, all of the leases, and obviously keeping in touch with where New York City is in terms of the retail landscape and what retailers are popping up in different neighborhoods. So I have a better sense of where I think certain businesses should go. And yeah, so it's a very demanding job. It's very high pressure, especially for a small company. But as I'm seeing, my hard work is starting to pay off. So I would just say, just keep your head down and work hard, and hopefully the rewards will come, which I've been seeing. So I'm very happy.
Like I said, I'm going to be working for this guy soon. Just so you guys know, this guy's taking over. I'm not even kidding. He's taking over New York.
But so what Max said is really important, because the one really great thing about brokerage is that there is no ceiling on what you can do. Okay, you can make as much as you want to make, as hard as you want to work, and you can make that happen. And it's really up to you and your team. So it's not like you're going into a job where it's every year you're gonna get a raise of whatever. This is like you can do really well pretty quickly, and it takes time to get started. But once you're started, and once you're past that first 2 years, really the sky's the limit.
Definitely. Thank you, guys. Any other questions? I want to be mindful of your time, but I think we have time for a couple more questions, maybe 1 or 2. Anyone?
I have a question. It's Brandon.
Okay.
This is for Rob. Rob, when can I come back to campus and teach again? That was a highlight of my career.
Yeah, we'd love to have you again. Hopefully our indoor mask mandate will be lifted soon in DC. Well, I guess it is, but we haven't
March 1st, right?
at GW what we're doing at the university. The city is lifting it as of March 1st, but we didn't follow it the last time they lifted it, so I don't know. Yeah, we love having you come down. Just let us know when you're coming down to DC, and we'll figure out a place to showcase you. I know with Professor Lake's class, he's only doing the REIT class now in the fall, but we'll always find a place for you. So,
cool. All right. Good to know. That's
open invitation.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any last questions, anyone? I mean, you'll be able to enroll in Brandon's class soon, so we'll give you that information. All right, well, it seems like we've kind of reached an end of this panel, but thank you guys so much for coming. This was wonderful. It was great to hear from all of you, and we hope to have you back soon. Feel free to reach out to as many questions. I'll be sending the recording out to the members. But yeah, so anything else, Rob?
Just reminder that we do have a lunch and learn tomorrow at noon with Steve Kligerman, who Max mentioned at the beginning or during his talk. Next week we've got those lunch and learns every week, and then next week, for those who are interested in REITs, we actually have a REIT panel discussion for alumni and students as well, Thursday night, same time. We've got great panelists who are alumni in the industry. If you're familiar with REITs, or if you're not, it's a great way to get involved. And finally, I'm just trying to think of events coming up. We still do, Sharon, I think, mentioned Urban Land Institute. We still have a few slots open for the Urban Land, Urban Plan workshop next Friday night and Saturday. Just read my emails. I know my emails are long, but there's so much going on here, and I do hope you take advantage of all the opportunities here. And organizations like ULI and others are offering free or reduced student memberships. So do look into that, or just email me if you've got questions about student memberships, and I'll be happy to connect you to those organizations. I know CoreNet Global, which is for corporate real estate, has offered a free membership to GW students. So again, there's a lot out there. It's a huge industry, lots of things to do, but please take advantage of those opportunities.
Well, I second everything Rob said. You have no excuses because we're sending the same events out multiple times a month. So again, if you do have any questions about where to find the links to these events, both of us are available. Tomorrow's available. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming, and thank you to the audience for being so engaged. And I'll let you guys go.
Thanks, Chloe. Great job.
Right,
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Max.
Great job.
Thank you. Great job.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Sharon. Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Are we all good?
Awesome.
Okay, great.
Stop the recording.
Oh yeah. How do I stop it? Oh, okay.